Good evening. If I could have everyone's attention, we'll call the meeting to order. This is our second meeting of the year as required by statute for the I-81 Advisory Committee meeting. Welcome everyone to the Virginia Horse Center, and I'd like to express my appreciation and thanks to Stephen Shanks, the CEO of the Virginia Horse Center, for allowing us and hosting this meeting and allowing us to assemble here today. I hope everyone likes being here. This is pretty much a central part of I-81, and that's sort of why I've chosen this site, and this room seems to accommodate our activities very well. So thank you all for traveling here today. We're in a busy holiday season, and I don't know anything more cheerful to discuss than I-81, you know? So, well, before we begin, let's go around the table and introduce ourselves from left to right. We'll start with the Honorable Senator from the furthest point of Virginia.
I think we got the consolation prize for driving the farthest, Mr. Chair, so I get to go first, I guess. Senator Hackworth, Travis Hackworth from the 5th District, hometown of Richlands in Tazewell County, and just glad to be here. I represent from Tazewell all the way up to the town of Blacksburg, Mr. Smoot up there. So 81, I think we have the most distance of 81 than any General Assembly member, starting at Marion going all the way to Blacksburg. So I think we travel that road. We've seen 2 wrecks and slowdowns on the way up here, so love talking about 81.
Senator, thank you for making that trip, and you know, I tell everyone often the travel that you all travel to get to Richmond to represent the people's business, and I'm glad you didn't name those counties by name, or we'd be here all evening. So thank you for the area that you do serve. So thank you, Travis.
I'm Tom Folks. I live in Washington County, and I'm the Bristol District Representative on the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Mr. Folks.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Friedman, Mayor of Lexington, Virginia, and I am the chair representing the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bill Johnson. I'm the chair of the New River Valley Regional Commission.
Good afternoon. Bill Wiley, delegate up in Winchester, Frederick County, on pretty much the opposite side of 81 from Senator Hackworth, neck of the woods. Thank you for letting me be here.
I'm Terry Austin. I'm chairman. I represent the 37th House District, which is Botetourt, Allegheny, Craig, and parts of Rockbridge, and where we sit here is in my district also.
I'm Mark Obenchain, Senator for 2nd Senate District. Along with Mr. Chairman here, I carried the Senate version of the legislation that created this commission. It's good to be back on the commission after 4 years away from you. I represent the central Shenandoah Valley from Augusta County up through Rockingham and then over into Page, Allegheny, and Bath. So it's good to see everybody.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Stephen Britch, Commissioner of Highways for the Virginia Department of Transportation.
Mr. Chairman, Raymond Smoot from Salem District, and I want to commend the commissioner. Coming up here, I passed one truck burning up, literally, and I passed another one that it had the big wrecker to come in and work on it, and the flow of traffic was never interrupted. Very good work.
Chair, I'm Phil North, Chair of the Roanoke County Board of Supervisors and also Chair of the Roanoke Valley Transportation Planning Organization. Had a timely trip up here. Everything went smooth. Thank you.
I'm David Suderline. I represent Roanoke City, Roanoke County, Montgomery, and Salem, all of which have I-81 running through part of those jurisdictions. Good to be here.
I'm Randy Pennington. I'm from Washington County. I'm chairman of Mount Rogers Planning District and also vice chairman of Washington County Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman, I'm John Good from Winchester, and I'm the Stanton District representative on the Commonwealth Transportation Board. And Ty Lawson and I did not have any delays to coming down here this.
Great.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you and welcome. Well, thanks everyone. This is important business. As we know, I-81 is a major commerce corridor in the Commonwealth in much need of improvement. If you travel it as much as the senator here and the senator to my left do, You experience delays and the lack of dependability in travel, and that's our mission. That's what we're trying to accomplish, is make improvements and continue to make improvements and to continue to find revenue streams to do that, which is quite challenging. I'd like to welcome some members, our deputy secretaries, Commissioner Bridge, Chief Engineer Bart Thrasher, I-81 Corridor Program Director Dave Covington, and other VDOT staff. And thank you all for all you do. Y'all are a tremendous asset to what we're trying to accomplish here. We basically hand that ball over to you and you get it done. And we thank you for the work that you do. Dave Covington's done a phenomenal job, Dave, over the course of time. And it's been quite a few years that you've been the director of this program. You'll give a presentation today, and you're always a breath of fresh air for what you do. So thank you, David. We'll also have a financing update from Laura Farmer and on the Virginia Breeze, and some other informational issues from VDOT today. So with that, let's just move into the agenda. I have an approval of the minutes, and is there any discussion pertaining to the minutes, and has everyone had the privileged opportunity to review the minutes? And if so, is there a motion to approve the minutes as drafted?
Make a motion for approval of the minutes as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second to approve the minutes?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. That's our next order of business. We'll move down to the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program update by Dave Covington, Director of the I-81 Corridor Program. So Dave, are you prepared?
I am. We're just waiting to get the presentation up here.
Password. Who's coming with the password?
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'd like to present to you just a brief update on the status of the I-81 Corridor Improvement Program. Again, my name is Dave Covington with VDOT. I manage the Corridor Improvement Program. I'd like to start with a slide just reminding all of us of why we're here today and what we're trying to accomplish. These are the three tenets of the program: enhancing safety, reducing congestion, and then economic development. Certainly, we're not directly tied to that, but economic development is greatly reliant on reliable transportation. And I'd like to make reference at the top here to the phrase unlocking I-81. This is the phrase that the governor has been using over the past year or so to demonstrate how transportation enhancements improve economic development. This slide is just a reminder of the number of localities and universities and all these things that are along I-81 and why Interstate 81 is so important, not only to local development, but also to statewide and national development. Okay, we'll start with the takeaway scorecard. This gives a snapshot of where we're at today. And I'll just move down through these rather quickly. You'll see a lot of these improvements that were proposed almost 5 years ago are now complete, starting with the improved incident clearance. We've seen very positive results. We'll get a quick snapshot of what that looks like. That is entirely complete and under operation. Safety Service Patrol expansion is complete and under operation. We've installed 51 additional cameras so that our Traffic Operations Center can respond to incidents along the corridor more quickly. So we are nearing full coverage of I-81 with our camera system. We've installed 30 additional message signs so that we can communicate directly with people who are driving along Interstate 81. That is also complete. We have arterial and signal upgrades, and this is predominantly signal improvements along our parallel routes in our interchange locations so that when we do have incidents along Interstate 81, we can very quickly and efficiently reroute traffic onto some of these alternate routes. Most of these improvements are complete. We will have the entirety of these improvements, which is roughly 200 signal improvements will be complete by June of next year. We have 35 capital improvement projects in the program that are complete. So 35 out of what we started with was 64. We have 16 active construction projects now, all scheduled to be complete by March of 2031, and 14 remaining capital improvement projects that we will go over in later slides. So just to give everybody a sense of the types of projects and the numbers of projects in each category, I'll kind of step through these. The first is the widening projects. These are our biggest projects, not only from a financial perspective, but from a corridor impact perspective. We have 12 improvements in this category. 6 of these projects are under construction now, and 6 will be upcoming in the near future, all complete by 2035. Acceleration and deceleration extension projects, while they're not large projects, they are impactful because most of our problems occur at interchange locations where we have vehicles leaving or entering the interstate. This was the greatest number of improvements for our capital projects at 36 improvements. We have 25 of those projects complete and under operation now, 3 currently under construction, and 8 future projects that will be completed by 2033. Next, moving on to truck climbing lanes, and everybody who drives Interstate 81 knows that we have challenging topography. We also have clusters of crashes where we have steep grades, and that is the reason for these truck climbing lane projects. We have 5 improvements in the program currently. We have 1 truck climbing lane complete. We have 4 under construction, 2 of which will be complete next year, and the other 2 will be complete in 2028. Now we move on to auxiliary lane projects, and what an auxiliary lane is generally it's an additional lane connecting 2 interchanges. So we do have a lot of interchanges along I-81 where people enter the interstate and then they're exiting the interstate at the next interchange. So these auxiliary lanes reduce the number of friction points where people are merging in and out of traffic. We have 4 of those improvements in the program. 1 of those projects is complete and 3 are currently under construction. Next, we have shoulder widening and curve improvements. We have 8 total curve improvements along the corridor, all of which were completed early in the delivery of the program. I will add that we do have a note here that we did make a good decision in converting what was originally a shoulder widening project to a 3-lane widening project, and that is between Rafine and Fairfield. So that was a good improvement there. So all of the shoulder widenings are, all of the curve improvements are complete and in operation, and shoulder widening has gone away and now become a widening project. So I talked earlier about our operational projects, specifically our incident clearance initiatives. And I'll just step through what these improvements are and where we're at with them. So we have 42 additional signal improvements that are complete. Those are the VDOT signal systems. We have 46 VDOT signal improvements that are under construction that will be completed in the next year. We have 55 locality signal improvements complete and 57 locality signal improvements under construction, which will be complete in 2025. We also had 3 geometric improvements right here in Rockbridge County that were completed several years ago. So this gives an idea of our arterial signals. Again, I mentioned that number 200 before, so it's a lot of signal systems that we are upgrading to smart technology. This also includes a lot of coordination with the localities to make sure that we can integrate into their system and that they can accept that and perform maintenance on those systems. I would like to point to the bottom right there, the improved incident clearance time. So this is effectively our towing and recovery incentive program. Last year, I reported that we had roughly a 24% reduction in clearance time for incidents, and that holds true for this past year as well. So we are still looking at that investment resulting in a 24% reduction in clearance time. And anybody who's been involved with incident response knows that every minute counts when it comes to clearance time. So this outlines our project development process. We step through all the way from planning all the way to projects completed. I'd like to point out that at the
Hey,
bottom.
David,
Yes, sir.
if I can interrupt you, you made a statement a minute ago about smart technology on signal. Can you expand on that for me, please?
Yeah, what the smart signal technology does is it allows our traffic operations center, when we have an incident on the interstate and there is a dramatic amount of vehicles that are being bypassed onto one of the alternative routes, that our traffic operations center has the ability to go in to those signals as a group and change the timing of those signals so that we don't end up with secondary crashes on the alternate routes. Because when we have an incident on the interstate and an incident on the alternate route, we're at gridlock. So instead of having a technician go out to each signal and manually change the timing, we can effectively do it with the push of a button from the Traffic Operations Center.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. So getting back to our project development process, and at the bottom here, these are the numbers that I showed you last year. So I want to compare where we're at today with where we were at in October of 2023. So right now, we have no projects in our planning stage. So every project in the program, and I'll remind everybody that there are 65 capital improvement projects in our program now, because last October, we moved one additional project into the program that is currently under design and headed toward construction. So 0 projects in planning today. We had 2 projects in planning last year. We have 2 projects in the preliminary engineering and environmental evaluation stage. I think by the end of the year, we will move those into the design phase officially. Last year, we had 4 projects in that category. Today, we have 12 projects in the design stage. Last year, we had 18 projects. And what you're seeing here is projects moving through the project development process toward that completion state. We have 0 projects right now in right-of-way and utility coordination, same as last year. We have 16 projects now in the construction phase. Last year, we had 6. So we've moved 10 projects into that construction phase in the last year. And these are some of our largest projects along the corridor as well. So we're not talking about, interchange improvements and ramp extensions. We're talking about widenings and truck climbing lanes. Currently, we have 35 projects complete, and last year we had 34. So we've completed 1 project since this update last year on the capital side. So what are those projects? I would rather not read through all of these for you. I think that would not be a good use of time. But what I've done is, on the side here, I've shown you how many of each type of project that we just went over have been completed in each district. So looking at Bristol District, we have a whole host of projects that have been completed. We have the 12 ramp extensions, acceleration and deceleration lanes. We have an auxiliary lane. We have the 4 curve improvements and 1 truck climbing lane completed. These projects that are under construction now. So there's a large list of projects in Bristol District. And we're at the point now where we're, have almost completed what the mission was for Bristol District. So we're getting very close and looking to, look at what else can we do in the district in the future. But you can see here, we've got several truck climbing lane projects. We do have a couple of acceleration and deceleration lane projects. These completions are, we have 4 in 2025, 2 in 2026, and 2 in 2027. This gives a graphic of what is currently under construction and what is upcoming in Bristol District. And you can see all these projects along, all the way from Bristol all the way up to the I-77 interchange. So there's a lot under construction, predominantly the truck climbing lanes. We do have the largest project in Bristol District is the widening there in Bristol between exit 10 and exit 7 that's underway, will be complete next year. We have several bundles of projects, mostly in the I-77 interchange area. We have 1 design build project that combines 2 projects for delivery. We have a bid build contract that bundles 2 projects on the 81 corridor, and then also a local project as well. So I think we've done a good job at bundling projects for delivery to enhance the efficiency of that delivery. Moving on to Salem District, where we have fewer projects, but they are generally much larger than what we just looked at in Bristol District. So what we have completed to date are 3 ramp extension projects and 3 curve improvements. Projects that are currently under construction, and these are some of the biggest along the corridor between exit 137 and 141, both northbound and southbound. That is a design build contract that is currently underway with a anticipated completion in January of 2026, and a newly awarded contract between exit 143 and exit 150, a very challenging section of the corridor. That's a very large project that will be complete in March of 2031. They are just getting started. They're doing field investigation right now, so if you drive through there and say, where's all the construction, it's coming soon. They're completing the design, gathering their data, and moving forward quickly. And this is a similar map of Salem District showing what is currently under construction, those 2 projects I discussed, and all the projects that are upcoming. We've got 3 acceleration lane extensions projects. 2 of those will be bundled for delivery. Those are coming up in 2025. And we have, again, some of the largest projects along the corridor between exit 128 and 137. So this is from Ironto to Salem. That is now a northbound and southbound widening project, thanks to the decisions that y'all made last year to add that southbound section. And then Christiansburg Mountain from mile marker 116 there in Christiansburg to exit 128. That's only in the northbound direction because we already have the truck climbing lane in the southbound direction. So again, these are very large projects. They're going to take time to develop, but we do have some construction starts in 2026 and 2028 for those 2 large projects.
David, let me interrupt you there a
Yes, sir.
second. You mentioned adding that southbound lane. That was a $70 million savings
Yes.
to the construction cost by doing the 2 concurrently.
Yes.
And the only reason we didn't do the 2 concurrently originally was because we didn't have the revenue in the original projects to cover those costs to do that.
That's correct.
So what we're doing away with the northbound 119 to Oronto down the grade at the mountain and moving that to the southbound side in Salem. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are we not doing the 119 to Oronto northbound downgrade on the mountainside and moving those dollars to the southbound side in Salem?
No,
We're
the
still
Christiansburg Mountain
Okay.
remains as it always has.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, looking at Stanton District, here's a host of projects that are completed, 11 projects completed. All of them except for 1 are ramp extension projects. Most of these occurred very early in the program delivery. We did have 1 curve improvement at Mount Jackson. So projects that are currently under construction, we have an auxiliary lane project that really is more of a bridge replacement project than an auxiliary lane from exit 221 to 220 southbound. That will be complete in October of next year. We have the widening through Stanton, both northbound and southbound, from exit 221 to exit 225. That will be complete in June of 2027. We have a newly awarded project up in the Strasburg area from mile marker 299 to 296 in the southbound direction. That's again a widening project that will be completed in September of 2027. And we have the 2 truck climbing lanes at Weir's Cave, 1 northbound, 1 southbound, that will be completed in 2028. That's also recently awarded. Yes, sir.
And looking at the 221 to 220 auxiliary lane there in Stanton,
Yes.
did you consider doing a northbound? And if not, what would it take to add that? Because you have the same situation.
Yeah, so the northbound direction was not considered in the original plan, but that is certainly something that we are looking at now, understanding that there is a pretty good amount of traffic that's coming off Route 262 that will exit at I-64. So we are taking a look at that now.
Mr. Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I'd say to follow on to Dave's comment, that northbound auxiliary lane was looked at under the original 2018 plan. Because of the bridge project that is underway now, that was the deciding factor that the southbound movement had a heavier crash incident and congestion level there. So we addressed the bridge under this project now and is creating that auxiliary lane. You're going to see later in the next presentation an update to the plan, and this will certainly be considered in that next plan.
Thank you.
So when you look, and Commissioner, those are excellent points. When you look at cost benefit, the cost benefit of that northbound section is dramatically different now because we've replaced the Barterbrook Road Bridge and have space for that lane.
Dave,
Yes, sir.
I know that with the closure and detour of like I-40 and I-26 within the Asheville area, how much has that increased traffic on I-81 North?
That's a good question. I haven't gotten with our traffic engineering folks to give you actual numbers, but from what we're hearing from folks that are working in the field every day, it has been a noticeable increase in traffic. It seems to be kind of tapering off a little bit now, but there was for that period of time a noticeable increase in traffic. Fortunately for us, it did not impact our construction activities at all. So this is a similar map to the two other districts that we just looked at, showing what is under construction now in red on this for Stanton. And you can see the auxiliary lane, the Stanton widening, the Weir's Cave truck climbing lanes, and the Strasburg widening project. And what that leaves us with is we have an acceleration lane at exit 188. We have widened to 3 lanes southbound between exit 205 at Rafine down to exit 200. We have a bundle of 3 ramp extension projects at the Mount Sidney Rest area that are actually quite important. We did a video on that recently to highlight that, and those are some of the more important ramp extensions that we'll do. And then widening to 3 lanes between Harrisonburg, I say between exit 243 and 247, but they extend both directions beyond those exits. And then again, one of the more larger projects in the program is the widening through the Winchester area between exit 313 and exit 317. But we will be going further south and further north than those exits to accommodate some of the challenges that exist there.
Yes, sir. Senator?
Is the widening from 243 to 247 still on track to start construction in '25?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are completing design on that now and be heading toward construction soon. This is just a table list of all those projects that are upcoming. So ones that are in the program that haven't gone to construction yet, broken down by district. These are the same projects that were just on that map. So it's a little bit easier to digest if you're looking at it from a corridor perspective here. But again, you can see 2025 is going to be a busy year all the way through 2028 for awards for new construction contracts. So the Secretary always likes to use the phrase, it's going to get worse before it gets better. We will be enduring quite a bit of construction through 2035.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Quick question regarding the project for Harrisonburg, the widening, and then as well as for Winchester. How do you typically procure both of those opportunities? Are they both design build or are they design bid build?
Harrisonburg will be a design bid build project. It was originally envisioned as a candidate for design build, and the reason that we converted it to bid build was to complete the design in-house, let the Route 33 bridge replacement projects that are currently ongoing either complete or reach a maturity level that we don't have 2 contractors working in one space, fighting for lane closures or fighting for whatever resource. So that was a strategic decision to do that, and it's playing out exactly as we thought. So the 33 bridge replacements over I-81 will be wrapping up as construction begins in 2025 for the Harrisonburg widening project. The Winchester widening projects, we are envisioning those as design build contracts, because what we want to do is deliver improvements in the Winchester area that are very much in alignment with the schedule of other projects. We have a diverging diamond project on Route 11. We want to bundle those projects for delivery, not only for cost efficiency, but also we don't want the interference of what one contractor's schedule may be affecting another when you're talking about a significant set of ramps coming on and off of I-81 that if it's not sequenced correctly, they won't have anywhere to go. So we are planning on bundling those. Also, the realignment of the ramp northbound to where Redbud Road is now. So at a minimum, those three projects plan to be bundled together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, proceed, Dave.
Okay, so I've got two slides here just to give you an illustrative graphic of what these construction projects look like. They are large in scale, not only long, but complex, especially trying to maintain the existing traffic on the interstate. We have a lot of bridge replacements in the Salem area between exit 137 and 141, and I thought this would be a good one to highlight how we're doing that. You know, we are utilizing existing space in the median, building new structure, demolishing old structure after we move the traffic over. So it's a very logical, sequential process that has to be done very precisely. So we're very fortunate that our industry has gotten very good at this, not only on the design side, but also on the construction side. And then if you move up to Stanton, what you also find is that, you know, these were taken more in the grading stage. We don't have as many bridge replacements up in the Stanton area. We're utilizing existing structures, widening and rehabilitating. But, you know, the stormwater, the work that needs to go on in the median, the pavement, you know, we're taking advantage of the space that we have up there to minimize impact to the traveling public as much as we possibly can. And I'd like to encourage everybody to sign up for our newsletter. We put out a quarterly newsletter. Our focus has been very much on communications. If you visited improve81.org, you'll see that we have a great deal of information there. We have videos and podcasts about each project. But signing up for the newsletter is an easy way for you to just every quarter get that in your email inbox and scan through it and see what's going on with the program. Y'all can scan this at your leisure if you want, or you can go to improve81.org and then go to the newsletter page and just click that little button right there and you can sign up. And we would very much appreciate more people signing up to our newsletter because we do have a lot of information that we want to share broadly. With that, any other questions that y'all have?
Are there any questions from the committee at this time? No, none? Okay, so at this time, I'm going to move to the public comment for the I-81 portion. And then we'll do the public comment for the transit and the rail at a separate time. So is there anyone in the public who has a comment regarding the I-81 project construction as has been presented by Dave today? Comments at this time? Thank you. So David, thank you for the report, as always. Good job. Appreciate you. Okay, so now we'll move to the I-81 multimodal and project update, Virginia Breeze Intercity Bus.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I might, I'd like to follow up Dave's commentary, the corridor finance.
Oh, we got Laura to do the finance?
Laura
I'm
and
sorry. Yes,
Ben
we
Manel,
will.
if I
That's
could.
right. Thank you.
I apologize.
No problem. I didn't see it on my agenda, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner. Welcome, Laura. Thank you for being here today.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Delegate Austin and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to come to you again this year to bring you an update on the finances of the I-81 corridor. I'll start with some background about how we got here and how the program is funded. And then later in the presentation, Ben Manel from our planning division will give an update on steps coming up in the next year or so. So with that, in terms of legislatively, back in 2019, the I-81 program was started and envisioned in the code and provided new transportation revenues specifically dedicated to 81 and interstate highways in Virginia. And then 1 year later, we had a significant piece of legislation, the Transportation Omnibus Bill, that further changed I-81's funding streams by allocating money through the Interstate Operations and Enhancement Program and also authorizing $1 billion worth of debt to be supported by the fuel tax revenues. At the same time, It changed the mix of localities whose fuel taxes are dedicated to 81. So I-81 must pass through those localities or be wholly encompassed by a county through which I-81 passes. In terms of prudent use of financial resources, in the Code of Virginia, VDOT and the Commonwealth Transportation Board are required to fully fund a project within the 6-year planning horizon. So in many of our major programs, including the Interstate Operations and Enhancement Program, we must fully fund a project demonstrating that there is ability to deliver it within that 6-year window. With I-81 and the large-scale projects that it has and the continuing revenue stream, we felt securing flexibility on the treatment of I-81 was prudent, and recommended some budget bill language that allows I-81 and the Transportation Board to advance preliminary engineering and right-of-way activities prior to the full funding of construction. It constrains that we have some idea that construction will be fully funded within 3 years of that adoption. And then we also report on those projects that are advanced in this manner to the money committees of the General Assembly and the transportation committees. So just to remind you what funding sources support the 81 Corridor Improvement Program, we have regional fuel taxes along the corridor, as well as a share of statewide revenues that are allocated through the Interstate Operations and Enhancement Program. So regional fuels taxes have changed over time just a little bit, and that's just really the tax rate assessed as provided here on the slide. And as of July 1st of this year, it's 9 cents a gallon for gas and 9.1 cents a gallon for diesel. Those funds can be leveraged for the debt service for the corridor to pay off the bonds or TIFIA loans that we secure to deliver the projects, but also the pay-as-you-go funding to deliver projects. The allocation from the interstate program, I-81 receives an allocation that is equal to its ratio of vehicle miles traveled for large-scale Class 6 trucks or tractor trailers. Those are higher to the total VMT of all interstate highways in Virginia. And those funds can only provide in a pay-go basis. So whatever is provided through our construction formula for I-81 is provided in both state and federal funding to meet this allocation. The graphic on the right just demonstrates the structure of this funding over the 6-year period coming up. Really? Fuel tax revenues represent about $96 million per year on average, and the IOEP allocation is on average about $119 million per year. Delegate Austin asked us to include a reference last year in terms of what is I-81's share of VMT in Virginia. These are the percentages that have been captured each year to demonstrate how much of that interstate allocation goes to I-81. So it's safe to say about 44% of all major truck traffic is on I-81 in Virginia. This graphic just provides a visual representation of how we use the fuel taxes along the corridor to support the projects. Early on, we established the structure of the debt that we could deploy on I-81, trying to use the best structure possible. So very early in the program, before recent infusions, we issued some municipal bonds, and then we've also exercised TIFIA loans through the USDOT to deliver projects. So about a year and a half ago, 2 years, we secured some TIFIA loan agreements, and we made our first draw since we've met with you last. In this last year as well, we've gotten a lot of attention and gotten some additional money for I-81. In the budget bill passed this past session, $70 million of general fund was provided in the first year or fiscal year 2025 to support the advancement of projects. Congressman Klein also recommended a federal earmark that was included in the federal budget of $42 million. We also have a commitment of the general fund surplus from fiscal year 2024 to provide up to $175 million for the advancement of projects. Due to the performance of 2024, all of this 175 should be available for 81. However, it's still subject to appropriation, hopefully in this upcoming General Assembly session. So over this last year, these additional funds total $287 million more of directed funding to 81, which allows us to advance projects sooner. This just provides a visual representation of the funding that I updated you with in 2023 compared to 2024. It does include the assumption of that $175 million in general fund dollars to come, and just provide some perspective about where we are in terms of annual dollars compared to what we shared with you a year ago. This slide just provides the perspective on the revenue and spending to date across debt and project activity. On the right side, through June 30th of this past year, we spent $338 million on the program advancing projects, and provides the fund balance as we continue to work through projects and advance them. This slide provides some perspective on the sources of I-81. So the regional fuel taxes I mentioned earlier average about $96 million over the upcoming 6-year period, and you see this inherent growth. We use a tax forecast from the Department of Taxation for the regional fuel taxes, and this represents their estimate from last December. We also have the Interstate Operations and Enhancement Program allocation. This was in the board-adopted assumptions from June of this year. Other sources include those general fund dollars and earmarks that have been provided or committed to the program. And 81, the fund itself, also has retains its interest earnings. And so we include those in the program after actual interest has been posted to the fund and deploy those dollars to projects. The slide also shows the planned debt for the construction and how we anticipate executing that. It's moved out a little bit further because these recent infusions are pay-go money, and we don't have to exercise that debt sooner than we anticipated. The slide totals by each year and across to the slide I showed previously. It just demonstrates the use. As we move forward with debt on projects and TIFIA loans, we have debt service payments to make from the fuels tax funding. And then after that, whatever is remaining from the fuel tax dollars as well as the interstate allocation is available for construction. We have a small amount of money available for the financing and administration of I-81, and then the planned debt. And so this just demonstrates how we would deploy those dollars in the next several years. So just some perspective on the whole program itself. As Dave mentioned, we're about to enter, and we already are in, some significant activity on the corridor and significant financial resources that will be needed to deliver the projects. The projects have an estimated cost of $3.6 billion, and we can fund everything that's currently in the plan through 2035, based on the current revenue assumptions and the debt model that we have. Based on the recommendations of this committee last year, the CTB added the southbound mile marker 137 to 128, as mentioned earlier, to advance with the northbound, and then prioritize the remaining planned widenings on the corridor. They supported adding the 2 remaining projects in that original prioritized list in the following order, with the widening at Winchester to come later when we can advance the construction, and then Christiansburg to follow. Those recommendations were really prioritized to make sure that we were trying to not have a continuous work zone of 21 miles for a period of 4 to 5 years. So in terms of the project status in our program, with the flexible budget bill language to advance the early phases of projects before we could fully fund their construction, the Commonwealth Transportation Board added the preliminary engineering and right-of-way phases for these last 2 major widenings to the program, and their current estimates are provided on this slide. Current revenue projections can support funding the completion of the whole program by 2035, and we also have some residual funds between now and then. The construction schedules for those may extend beyond the 35 horizon, but we also want to make sure that we're ready for what's next. This slide provides just a view of the debt issuance plan. So with the $1 billion authorized to the program, I just wanted to make sure and provide a reminder that the delivery of these projects is subject to ongoing debt committed to the program, but we are fully maximizing the $1 billion over the period. But with the recent infusions, our last TIFIA loan draw based on the current plan is in 2032. So I'd like to provide some view of the extended financial outlook for 81 now that you've seen where we are today and the plans going forward. This slide is a little busy, so I'm going to walk through it and explain to you what it represents. So of the $3.6 billion, the bars on the chart represent planned expenditures on projects. And the black line represents the revenue stream available in each year. The orange and yellows represent PAYGO funding that we can make available and move forward with projects and what those projects are going to use. And then the blues represent the exercising of debt. And so, as you can tell, and from the previous balances, VDOT has geared up in planning and engineering to advance to construction. As Dave mentioned earlier, we are entering into a very busy period along the corridor, and the expenditures will exceed the annual revenue, but we're not extending the program beyond its capacity. So over the last 4 to 5 years, it has gained strength in the funding available. The earmarks also make those projects move faster, as well as allow us to push out the debt assumptions a little further in the program. As you see towards the end as well, as the projects are being completed, the expenditures on the current plan itself, just this plan, ramp down. But there is sufficient revenue that continues each year in the program. So there's potential to add additional candidate projects based on those assumptions. When we did the CIP program in 2018, we identified 106 projects for consideration. And because of constraints at the time about the funding picture, as well as the estimates, 64 of those projects were prioritized for funding. Since that time, we've talked to you a few times about the 5 additional candidate projects that were identified beyond those. Those represented those most complex, highest risk segments of the remaining capital projects in the CIP. And so, based on the recommendation you provided to the Commonwealth Transportation Board a year ago, they also took that action to add that other direction for southbound widening earlier this year in December, resulting in those savings that Delegate Austin represented a little earlier today, and also avoiding creating a bottleneck related to the project. And so that also was added to the Aranto segment, and VDOT is proceeding with that procurement. So when we take that project off the books, we have a remaining 4 that are listed here on the slide to use residual I-81 revenues to advance these projects. Those have been identified, and we have current cost estimates, very preliminary cost estimates, the total $656 million for these 4 remaining components. And then, of course, those represent today's dollars, and not advancing these has an inflationary impact of about $20 million per year. And so we took a look at when we think that potential is for advancing those projects. And before I get to that, I'm sorry, here's a map of the location of those 4 projects along the corridor. So our preliminary financial analysis indicates that we do have residual revenues to advance these projects to complete in the mid-2030s. And based on the estimates today, we put together a sample schedule of when those projects might be completed with what we know today, as well as inflating their cost estimate based on that potential delivery date. And so they're provided here on the slide, meaning we can advance the existing program and potentially complete the remaining projects, including these 4 by 2036. So considering that remaining capacity and what it's taken to get us to this point today, after funding the existing program and adding those additional 4 candidates, we believe there's remaining revenue capacities that start in 33 that allow us to begin engineering for what's next. And it's really important that that's advanced because beginning in 37, if we can meet the current expectations of the program, the annual revenue for 81 after its debt service payments continues in a strong way, as you can see, beginning in 37. And so we can begin to develop projects and have them ready for construction in the latter half of the 2030s. If you don't have any questions to date, I'm going to hand it over to Ben to talk about what's next.
Are there any questions of Laura at this time?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Laura,
Mr.
thank
Smoot.
you very much. In one of your early slides, I think you showed that the 24 estimated revenue over in several years was lower than had been estimated in 23.
Yes, the additional earmarks have helped boost what we showed to you a year or so ago. Yes, sir.
So it was the earmarks that made the difference.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions? Okay, Laura, thank you.
Sure.
Very well done. Manning, Ben, how are you, sir?
Doing well, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ben Manel. I am the acting director of planning at VDOT and also had the honor of helping develop the original 2018 quarter improvement plan. As Ms. Farmer mentioned, we do have significant headroom, it appears, with the anticipated revenues to add additional candidate projects. And those 4 were already identified and approved by this committee last year. Before we went back in and started talking about the idea to advance a quarter improvement plan update, we wanted to take one last look at the 2018 recommendation to see if there was any other projects that made sense to look at potentially advancing in the near term. We did find one that kind of jumped out to us. We have a current program project, as Dave mentioned, from Rafine down to Fairfield. That's exit 205 to 200 in the southbound direction. That's a widening. And we also, as part of those additional candidate projects, have identified widening from 64 up to Route 11, which is roughly about the mile marker 190, just south of the interchange with 64, up to exit 195, which is the Route 11 exit. We've recommended widening the additional candidate projects in each direction there. In looking at the data from 2018, we did have a significant crash issue identified actually between Fairfield to exit 200 and exit 195, which is Route 11 in the southbound direction. That is not only a safety issue, but it actually would be creating a bottleneck, which we try to avoid to do when we construct projects. So our recommendation would be to also add the southbound widening from Fairfield exit 200 to 195, exit 195, Route 11 as a candidate project. There is an opportunity potentially to bundle that project in with those adjacent projects to achieve a cost savings and some delivery savings. And the estimated value in 2024 dollars is shown down at the bottom there. So with that, as Ms. Farmer alluded to again, we do have revenues available and headroom available in the future. And in looking at that, it's time to start thinking about a new tranche of I-81 projects to be identified. And that means we need to go back and update the quarter improvement plan. We have 36 remaining projects from that original plan that have not advanced into the program. Those will be included and reevaluated as part of the update. And we can really kick off that update beginning in 2025. And that quarter improvement plan will include a problem identification phase, potential solutions identification, public outreach, prioritization, as well as briefings to this committee and the CTB. This is the tentative schedule for the update. We are going to be hitting the ground running hard. Luckily, we have a template to work from our last quarter improvement plan. And this would look at basically starting off with data collection in January. We've already started some of that data collection with doing the annual performance reporting that we do for 81 and identifying those problem areas along the corridor. And in the spring time frame, we would go out with issue identification, and in the summer, looking at potential solutions, and then early fall, coming out and identifying the priorities based on the available revenues, and looking to wrap up with a final quarter improvement plan by the end of the year next year. This is just to highlight the anticipated public outreach for the plan update. As you can see, there's going to be a number of opportunities for the public to weigh in. Along the way, we will be incorporating virtual participation this time. We didn't have a lot of that in the original quarter improvement plan, but with COVID, we now have a lot of experience under our belt in getting virtual options allowed into the public involvement process, and have had some really, really good success in getting comments and such from social media like Facebook, X, Instagram, you name it. So that's going to be incorporated into the game plan going forward. We will be having 8 in-person public meetings along the corridor, 2 sets. First one will be looking at the potential solutions that are identified. We will have 1 meeting in the Bristol and Salem districts and 2 in Stanton, 1 in the northern end, 1 in the southern end. And doing the same thing for the prioritization step once we reach that. And of course, we'll be briefing the CTB along the way, as well as holding your next advisory committee meeting. Will be coming back out to you. So in terms of recommendations, we're recommending, again, moving forward with those 4 additional candidate projects that you all have already identified, and with the addition of that one, which would be the 5th, which is the southbound widening from mile marker 200 to 195, as well as kicking off and initiating the update to the quarter improvement plan next year. And so in summary, updates to the project estimates that reflect the current market conditions, refined project scoping and debt assumptions have extended the delivery of the original program of projects, but revenue and allocations that support the Interstate 81 improvements continue to remain strong and support project delivery. And we believe that there is capacity for additional projects that can begin to be available from the program's current funding sources sooner as a result of the recent infusions of earmarks. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Manel. We appreciate that update. Any questions in regard to the information provided in the future planning?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Quick question. How do you guys, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but how do you evaluate priority projects? I'm assuming there's some type of algorithm that has incidents and traffic issues and all that, but how do you delineate, and is it current data, or do you use that from, can you explain that? Thank you.
So with respect to prioritizing recommendations, there's a prioritization process for the actual recommendations, and in code, we're required to use a smart scale-like process. But in identification of those priorities along the corridor, what we look at and focus on, the approach we've taken is looking at the top 25% locations along the corridor for crashes and looking at crash severity. That would be fatal and severe injury crashes, as well as the crash frequency in locations. Person hours of delay, and then incident-related delay, where we have 1 or more lanes of the interstate closed for more than 1 hour. Those locations where we have the top 25% locations across the corridor, we're focusing on those first and foremost because we don't have an unlimited amount of revenue in the near term, but looking at those and using today's latest information to identify and then putting together potential solutions to address those.
So as a follow-up, that's how you come up or figure out which capital projects, based on that final formula, it kind of categorizes those projects by priority. Is that assumption correct?
Yeah, so that's the problem identification phase. We develop potential solutions. Once we develop those potential solutions, we have to actually then go through that smart scale-like prioritization process. And at that point, we use the same smart scale congestion evaluation measures, which is reduction in person hours of delay afforded by the potential improvement, as well as reduction in crashes and addressing that underlying incident-related delay, as well as looking at accessibility to jobs along the corridor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Chairman,
All right.
what I saw on the screen was that the revenues seemed to be on par or remain strong to support the projects. Where are we relative to budget from, or what was forecasted originally? Are we close? Have we seen an expansion of that with gas prices being a little bit higher and the taxes collected, or not?
So from the beginning of the program, the CPI expected that would inflate the tax rate on the fuel tax going forward. That was much more conservative than what we actually experienced. And so fuel taxes have gone up significantly more than anticipated because of that CPI inflationary factor that's assessed each July. Beyond that, fuel tax estimates are where we thought. In addition, the interstate allocation that's provided to this program is benefiting from statewide performance of the Commonwealth Transportation Fund. So both pieces are moving higher than expected. I don't have ready memory of the percentage increase, but we can get that for you.
Not necessary. Just curious, the observation, everything is going in the right direction, but I was curious how well we had estimated and how it came to fruition. And clearly the earmarks and using some of the surplus helps immeasurably to jumpstart and get some of the other projects going.
Absolutely.
And my second question is this part where when I was asking about the northbound between, I think, 262 and Interstate 64, would this has already been approved, but that would be under consideration?
Yes, sir. As the commissioner mentioned earlier, with the next CIP update, we've already looked at that location between 220 and 221, and it is in the top 25%. So we would be evaluating a potential solution at that location going forward for the next round.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Senator.
And this is just something to educate me. I know there was talk about the concern with the rise in EV vehicles, and of course the weight that those vehicles will be putting stress on our highways. What was the final outcome as far as revenue? Was there anything put in place, revenue for those type of vehicles when they were bought, or anything that would go toward this fund as a revenue source? Could somebody just educate me on that?
There is a, Laura, are you prepared for this or not? I mean, there's an annual rate based on average miles per gallon that EV users pay. But what I've learned most recently is I don't think there's a fee structure for a vehicle over 10,000 pounds. So I'm considering putting in a study to be able to look at that, Senator.
I think we need to, because I think that's going to be impacted some damage to our roads.
Most definitely.
And then the lack of fuel, that it's going to be revenue from the lack of fuel these to be used.
Commissioner, you have any information to share on that?
Not particularly on that. I want to go back to the question that dealt with the revenue and are we tracking in the right direction? You've seen when we started this program in 2019 going into 2020 that we constrained the first 64 projects based upon the capacity at being at about $2 billion. We've seen, as Laura presented here, that the revenue projections over the course and where we stand right now is about a $3.6 billion program. One thing not to lose sight of is the tension that has been felt within the program on inflation, commodity adjustments, and those items associated with the cost of the projects. So certainly, while revenues have been keeping up, so has inflation in whittling away at the buying power of the dollar that we have. So they've been fairly in tandem movement. I do want to highlight the fact as we go through this, and Laura, if you can go back to slide 20 while I'm speaking of this, but as we go through these efforts, and we're projecting out these next several projects, both Dave, Laura, and Ben have been talking about, we're now into the very large projects that are going to take 5, 6, 7 years to go through a construction cycle. Predominantly, these are large, complex projects. And as we go through this, we're moving through the process of any impacts to commodities and inflation and labor costs may continue to push our schedules to the right. So what we're presenting today is what we know today. We could be into a completely different picture next year. But what we have out of the slide deck, and as we've said, what we know today, we do have headroom and capacity to be able to start identifying the next tranche of projects. And I think we're very fortunate to that. I want to re-highlight that in 2020, when we started this program, we started with zero engineering, zero environmental, we started with nothing on the table. And it's very important for us to start this CIP update next year to be able to ready ourselves into the early 2030s, because you can see the quick ramp up in 2037 once we get these other 5 projects into the program. We want to be ready and leaning forward with the engineering and be leaning forward enough that there is no break in cycle. We're going to take advantage of the dollars that are there. A previous slide that Laura showed was the revenue growth in our expenditures. We want to make sure that we're much more in line with the revenues coming in or equaling the expenditures going out. So the work that Ben's talking about undertaking starting in January of next year and hopefully finishing by December is going to identify that next tranche of projects. But a lot of this is going to be dependent upon what the economy does and the revenue streams that do come in.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you both very kindly. Great presentation. Good update as always. Appreciate your work and efforts. I had a request and a conversation with our CTB member, one of our CTB members from up in the Stanton District, Ty Lawson, and Ty's here. Ty, would you come forward? And I think now is probably the appropriate time, since we're talking about planning, to talk about what you have an interest in, Ty. So.
We do. Thank you very much. I'm Ty Lawson, a CTB member, rural at large from White Post. I had actually put forth to our board last month a request for a smart scale project that fits in with what we're talking about, and the commissioner's talking about IDing a next tranche of projects. And that was to do 3 lanes in Frederick County running from the Route 50 bridge all the way up to the state line. I knew about other projects that were underway, and you all have already heard a report that there's quite a bit of work between 313 and 317. That's right in the middle of the area that I'm describing. So I'm trying to use the words today, bundle projects for deliveries of efficiencies and take advantage of the work that's already underway. And the biggest push on this is, as you know, we have quite a bit of industrial projects, plants, significant facilities, a lot of employment in the northern Shenandoah Valley. We also got labeled as the fastest growing part of the Commonwealth, so we're getting a dose of residential as well. And 81 is, of course, like the rest of y'all, it's our main street. We're starting to experience more and more congestion. It's that backwards compliment. We're successful. The road is busy. And then to make it even more interesting, we match up, of course, on the state line with West Virginia. And they have started to build 3 lanes throughout the panhandle from Maryland down to us. And they're real pleased to tell industrial prospects that we're going to do it. We're finishing, we're doing 3, and guess who's not? Virginia. And so there's a little bit of friendly competition going on, if you will. But what I would ask that you all consider, and it's why I advanced it through Smart Scale, is extending those 3 lanes. I mean, we'd all like 3 lanes the whole length. But if we could demonstrate that we're working on it from the Route 50 interchange, which is a project all the way to the state line, I think it'll be a big demonstration to our industrial base that they'll stay there, they'll continue to grow there, others will come, and it doesn't hurt to be competitive with West Virginia either. So thank you for that consideration.
Thank you, Ty, and thank you for your work on our CTB board, along with others. Ty and I, Mr. Lawson and I, had a conversation about how the process initially evolved and how we'd come up with a tranche of projects and advanced projects and priorities. And I do think it's worthy to consider, as Mr. Manel said, to go back and take a look at the corridor and reevaluate the importance of projects, possibly where we have growth, where we have traffic congestion, and we need to do traffic mitigation. And so I would defer now to Commissioner Bridge to hear his concerns associated with how we move forward.
Mr. Chairman, I think what Ben has identified is that it's the department's intent to reevaluate the 2018 plan. A lot of things have changed throughout the corridor since 2018 when we took upon that study. Traffic has grown. We've redistributed potentially the safety impacts. We have 65 projects relatively up and underway and in the design phase. So we'll pull that out of the consideration and look at the next grouping of projects that we can identify that have a benefit to safety, have a benefit to congestion relief, and have an impact to economic development and access to jobs. So that scoring criteria and methodology in the section that Mr. Lawson just spoke about, as well as the rest of the corridor, absent the projects that are under construction or consideration now, will be fully reevaluated in the CIP update starting next calendar year. And hopefully at this point in time, next year we'll have those results. So to be able to identify a project or just put a project into what we're considering right now without any analysis, any comparison or prioritization along the 325 miles, in my opinion, would be premature at this point, especially knowing that we're going to update the entire corridor improvement program next year, and we'll see what those results are at that point in time. So I think the right thing to do would be, as we spoke about the exit 220 to 221 auxiliary lane, take that into consideration, as well as the improvements that Mr. Lawson has identified, and evaluate that as part of the corridor improvement plan update. And hopefully by this time next year, we'll figure out whether that rises to the top 25, as Ben said. Limited resources do have some consequences attached to it. I will highlight that to be able to put a project in at this point in time that has no engineering, no cost estimates associated with it could be detrimental to looking at what the other projects are in cycle today. So let us do the due diligence, let us have a data-driven approach to it, and be able to bring that back to the committee for consideration next year, and then to the Commonwealth Transportation Board thereafter. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Commissioner. So any comment in regard to the Commissioner's recommendation? Okay. So do I have a motion to move the Commissioner's recommendation?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the Commissioner's recommendation. Project will be taken into consideration when we do the whole tranche. So thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you. Thank you for your work here. Thank you kindly. Certainly, all the work along the corridor is important, and we all have priorities. And you know, I just wish we had more money and we could accomplish more. So I'll remind the legislators sitting at the table, when you do things, look for dollars associated, because that's what we need to make things happen, unfortunately. So, okay, now we'll move down to what I tried to jump ahead to earlier, is the I-81 Multimodal Improvement Plan Projects Update with Virginia Breeze and intercity bus activities. So, I'm sorry. One second. I do need to take action on the 5 projects that have been advised for the committee for recommendation to advance for the 2018 CIP project. So do I have a motion to advance the 5 projects that were identified previously?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second.
One question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just so I follow. This is these were the 4 that we saw, including the S-turns in Buchanan.
It's correct.
It is correct.
All right,
And
I
the
want to
fifth
make
one-
sure I followed
The fifth one is
the one that he
Stanton
just
southbound
suggested.
195 to 200, David.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Steve. All right. Once again, I'll try to get you.
Thank you, Chair.
That's challenging. I apologize.
It's fine when I'm sandwiched
Go ahead,
between
Zach.
Laura and my colleague DJ that'll come after DJ Stadler after this. There's a whole lot fewer zeros that I deal with, so you all can relax a little bit. So I'm here just to talk about the intercity bus service, give you a little background on it, the Virginia Breeze. I hope all of you have at some point seen one of the buses going up and down I-81 or stopping at some place within your districts that we serve. Just some background real quick. It was launched before the I-81 Commission was even in existence in response to the need for intercity bus service that's required by the Federal Transit Administration in rural areas. And so we had something called the Valley Flyer that was running as recently as soon as 2017. And it initially went from Blacksburg to Union Station in DC. And that, again, is funded solely through the FTA Intercity Bus Program, which is a rural program, and ticket sales, fare box, you might call it. Since then, 2 new routes were also added to serve rural areas. And you see where those go. One goes from Danville to DC and one goes from Martinsville to DC. Those don't take 81. Those go 29 and 360 to 95. And we do contract that service out. So we don't operate it directly, but we do contract it out and pay the contractor to do the service. Just real quickly, again, just to give you a background on sort of where the program started before this commission was even involved. It is to go between, it's a rural program to go between these underserved, which is not always precisely defined, but, and then, even the word meaningful connections, not precisely, but we had a study done that determined these areas needed this type of bus service to connect with the rest of the national network. And so you see that it has to travel that long distance, which again is kind of between 2 urban areas such as Blacksburg and Union Station in DC. But thankfully, when the I-81 Commission did come into existence and the call was out for projects to put into the program, DRPT was approached about a recommendation, and what came out of that was extending this intercity bus service down to Bristol. And so that's been the most recent service that was established. The Commission saw fit to, after we studied and came up with that recommendation, to put $243,000 per year towards operating. So that is money that goes towards the operation of the service. So we do get that on an annual basis. And then there was $100,000 worth of one-time capital funds that's going towards putting some stop improvements along the route. Because again, to try to make sure people are comfortable, have a good place to catch the bus, some stop improvements are needed. So this is just an overview. This shows all the routes. Of course, I-81 is the one over furthest to the west. As you can see, Valley Flyer starts at Blacksburg, takes I-81 the majority of the way. And Bristol, the Highlands Rhythm is the green one that goes and has a few fewer stops. You can see, as you can imagine, the college, university population is along these routes. Dulles, Union Station are the highest destinations, the biggest destinations, and then the origins are obviously the college towns as well. So, now again, Valley Flyer does not receive any funds from the I-81 Commission. The operating funds and the capital were put completely only to the Highlands Rhythm, our most recent route. So here's something, Laura had some funding sources before. This is similar. So again, that $243,000 per year, you can see what that goes towards. And then how we supplement it, subsidize it with the intercity bus program, and then ticket sales, what kind of percentage they bring. So this is the full 4 years operation of the Highlands Rhythm route itself. So it is a little bit over $1 million gross, gross revenue and cost there. This actually shows, just another little zag here. The ridership for Highlands Rhythm is the green at the top, but we also just want to show you kind of how the whole I-81 corridor is being served with intercity bus service. So again, the Valley Flyer has been extremely successful. It certainly has some seasonal ups and downs. You can see we've had ridership going up every year. This is 2024 are only partial because we're obviously only in November. gotten some October ridership data, but I haven't gotten November yet. But we certainly expect it to be. We're not going backwards. We keep increasing, luckily, year over year. So it's been a great story so far. So you can see how Highlands Rhythm has done since it was established in November 21. And again, just that's the only one that receives any funding from this commission. So to give you an idea of how someone that used this service, what kind of timetable they'd be looking at to get, again, it's the premise is that you're going to go from this rural area, you're going to hit, when you get to DC, you can take a bus up to the Northeast Corridor, go anywhere in the rest of the world, for instance, or you can get anywhere in the rest of the nation potentially. So that's sort of what it's based on. You can see we would, I don't know, but saying it's an affordable option, there's the fare structure for you, anywhere from 21, depending, 20, I guess, to go from like Harrisonburg just along I-60, or along I-66, the shortest route, $21. Going to go all the way from Blacksburg to, or Bristol to DC, you may be looking at about $60 for a one-way trip. So as part of this program, again, we had one-time capital funds of $100,000 put towards the program back when it was established. And so we're still working on Withville stop relocation. That's one of our areas that we want a new one. Those of you that I know one from Withville, I think, is on this commission, but they've been a great partner, very, very good to work with. We've got a location we're looking at, so to build a nice shelter for catching the bus there. And then we're also, if you noted on the map, there's we go to DC right now, but there's no connection sort of east-west across Virginia. That's, Hampton Road, 64 up to the valley here. And so we're looking at establishing a route there. It's not going to connect up to that Northeast corridor like it does, but we've just, as these have succeeded and we've seen the ridership grow, we want to not rest on our laurels and are looking at perhaps that connection across Virginia to connect even more Virginians to our rural and urban areas together. So that's something that's under development right now, and we're getting ready to potentially look at the procuring of that service and to negotiate where stops might be and to get that route going. So that's something else coming up just in the intercity bus. Not really anything this commission right now would necessarily have a part in funding-wise or anything, but certainly just so you know what's going on with our department and the I-81 corridor in large. So, and that's it for me. So if y'all have any questions or anything.
Senator?
That's truly impressive, that 45,000 riders. Can you put that in perspective a little bit? I can't tell how many trips you run, what kind of percentage occupancy on the buses you're experiencing.
Yeah, I think so. It is just that trip a day. Sometimes we will have to put it, and again, it's sort of seasonal because the college students are such a large user. We will have to put an extra bus on sometimes. So I think it is seasonal. It runs 365 days a year. So yeah, it's not necessarily going to be full all the time, but there are times when you get a full bus, and if you just do the math, you're maybe getting a couple dozen riders a day on average or something like that. But there are periods of time that there will be much higher. We may even have 2 buses running each way during those really peak periods on the holiday. That's why the ridership, you'll see it November, December are going to be the very peak times. And so yeah, that's kind of it's pretty orderly way it goes about annually. So
on average, what, about half full?
Yeah, I'd say half to on average. Yeah, on average, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. Zach, thank you. I'm sorry.
I was just going to
Yes,
offer
sir.
a comment.
Frank?
Having utilized the service, the different names can be a bit confusing. If you're looking for the Virginia Breeze and you see a Virginia Flyer, you don't know that that's what you're looking for.
The Valley Flyer versus the other ones.
yeah.
Yeah. If you're just looking for Virginia Breeze, see, I'll pass that along and see if there's a different way we can market or brand or anything if that's the case. I appreciate you using the service, and I hope it's been And again, I think there's a lot that still probably don't know about this. So certainly, I think we market a lot. There's I don't think there's any lack of marketing on DRPT's part, but certainly word of mouth and just being more visible, to continue to increase it.
Keep in mind that what this service is doing is taking passenger vehicles off Interstate 81. Right. You're looking at 45,000 passengers in '23, you know, 2 people per car. It's quite significant reduction in volume and capacity on Interstate 81, so.
Thank you for all the support.
Senator?
I would say that I was very surprised. I was in New Jersey visiting with my daughter's in-laws, and they have a nephew who's at James Madison,
Yeah.
and they said he rode the bus to D.C. and
Right.
caught the train to New Jersey. So
Outstanding.
it's not just kids traveling the length of Virginia on 81. It takes them much farther and took that New Jersey family off of our highway.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other comment? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes, sir, Zach. Appreciate your work. Okay, so now we'll move to the New River Valley Passenger Extension, DJ Stadler, with Executive Director of Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. DJ?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me put this down so I can. That was me. Down here. Oh, we want to do that?
Happy to have you, DJ.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. My name is DJ Statler. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority, and as the Chairman just pointed out, every person that is on a bus or on a train is a person that's not driving a car on I-81. So while we're not paving, we're not adding lanes, we're not doing that tremendous work, we are doing our part to get folks off of I-81. So this, just as a reminder, is a map of the passenger rail service throughout Virginia. You can see all of the different places where we run trains. We don't actually operate trains at VPRA. We contract with Amtrak to run the trains, but those are the different routes. The one we're going to talk about today is this extension right here from Roanoke to Blacksburg. I know there was passenger service there in the past. It stopped back in 1979 or so. Dr. Smoot can go on for hours and hours on all the different trains that were there. He'll do that after 3 o'clock, probably with a glass in front of him.
Don't encourage that, DJ. Don't encourage that.
This is the map of our current routes. As you can see, we've got 8 round trips going throughout the state, 2 of which go to Roanoke now. Just a quick history of what we've done in passenger rail. Back in 2008, PREA was passed. It's the Passenger Rail Improvement and Investment Act, and that was the legislation nationwide that allowed states to basically control their own destiny in rail. That year, 2009, Virginia said, hey, we really want a train to Lynchburg. We will pay Amtrak for it. Any costs that you have Amtrak that are not funded by ticket revenue, Virginia will bear the cost. At that point, Amtrak and Virginia got together and estimated about 30,000 riders a year would take that train to Lynchburg. After the first year, there were 100,000 riders. So it showed that passenger train in Virginia would be successful. We have continued that success, knock on wood. Through COVID, we've now come above the record ridership we had before COVID, and we set records, if not every month, very often. We set a record back in 2024. So this is the agreement. We extended the service to Roanoke in 2017, and back in 2022, we signed an agreement with Norfolk Southern to provide for that extension from Roanoke further to the New River Valley. It included us buying the Virginia line, which I'll talk about in a minute, and I'll show you here. It was about $257 million. Sorry, Zach, I know. These are the different station sites that we looked at in 2022. There were 5 different sites that were in the final group. The stations that were the most desirable to the community were the 2 that were right by the mall. There were others that were looked at, but those were the 2 that really made the most sense. At that point, 2022, we were at 0% design. We felt the cost to extend to New River Valley was $257 million, and that we would get it done in 2026. And you can see the top line, that's the Virginia line. So what we did is we purchased the Virginia line from Norfolk Southern. We stood out with the governor and we said, hey, this is a great plan. We're going to get to New River Valley in 2026. At that point, again, we had no designs, we had no plans. We will never do that again. Come 2024, we got these designs to 30%, and we found out that $257 million would not be sufficient. In fact, the least expensive option to get there would be $545 million. Looking at the map, if you go, and I'll point, that $545 million would get you to the Cinnabar Road site. Just to the west of Cinnabar Road is the Merrimack Tunnel. That's a mile-long tunnel that is not up to current safety standards. Yes, they used to run trains through there all day long. I totally get that. Current safety standards, it's not up to standards. We could get to New River Valley. We could get to the Cinnabar site for $545 million. As that last bullet shows, if we wanted to get to the other side of that tunnel down to that mall location, it would be another $400 million. We brought that to our board and we said, look, we know this isn't a feasible solution. It's just not going to work. It'll get you there, but it's way too much money. So at that point, we went back to Norfolk Southern and we said, look, way back in 2021, you stood on that stage with us with the governor and you said, hey, we can get there. We need a better route. This map shows when our original conversations took place with Norfolk Southern back in 2019, 2020, we really wanted to go on the N line, which is the Norfolk Southern main line that goes from the Roanoke area, you see it goes through Salem, and then it goes down on the bottom to what we call Station Site C, which was the historic Cambria Depot. That was where passenger rail went from 1906 to 1979. In 1979, or shortly thereafter, it became a Norfolk Southern Maintenance of Way site, and since then it's been used for Norfolk Southern Maintenance of Way. That's where we wanted to go back in 2019. They wouldn't allow us to do that. When we talked to them in January, they had a different view. They said, you know what, leadership has changed. We get the fact that we were part of this promise. Let's talk about how we can get you to Christiansburg on the N line. The V line is the one up top. That's the one that we had purchased. That took you all the way through B, which was the Cinnabar site, and then A is the mall site. Between those two is that tunnel that we already talked about. Any questions on the map? I know I did that quickly. Okay, the question that you might want to ask is, well, wait a second, I see Christiansburg. What is that potential Radford layover facility? So we'll talk about that next. In 2024, starting in January with that conversation, it took a few months, but we came to a new agreement with Norfolk Southern. And it's a good agreement, and I'll tell you why. But what it does is it gets us there on the main line. It gets us there a couple years sooner. And it also gives us, or it gave us, the opportunity to purchase the Manassas line. So the Manassas line has nothing to do with I-81, but it allows us to put more folks on the trains. It's the line between Alexandria and Manassas. That's where the VRE goes. That's where we have passenger trains that go. Norfolk Southern, I want to say this kindly because I'm being recorded. Norfolk Southern didn't always give passenger trains the priority there, and so it caused some on-time performance issues. The ability for us to purchase that line will keep the trains on time, passenger trains, and really free up getting from Alexandria to Culpeper, Charlottesville, all the way through. So that's a big win that's part of this extension that is not often talked about. But we negotiated that deal with Norfolk Southern. We brought it to our board in the June timeframe. They said, yes, go forward, and we closed on that in August of this year. So what does that mean? It extends the Christiansburg line onto the main line. We don't have to own that. We'll run a Norfolk Southern line. We also have contract stipulations with Norfolk Southern that says if they don't run us on time, we pay them significantly less. In fact, if they run less than 30%, we pay them nothing. So that's a good deal. We also were able to sell the Virginia line back, so we no longer have the responsibility to maintain that tunnel, which is fantastic. We acquired that depot building, the historic depot, and Norfolk Southern has actually already moved out. They had to move out by October 1st. They're building a new maintenance way location just to the east of our location. It gives us the opportunity to stop in Bedford and also opens the door for a third train to Roanoke and eventually maybe to Radford or further on. The important thing is, though, and this is what the chairman will likely bring up if I don't, that in the old solution, if we stopped at Cinnabar, any further travel southwest, you would have to go through that tunnel, and you'd still have to pay that $400 million. With us on the passenger line, we're on the same line that goes further southwest wherever you want to go, and I'm not going to say the city name.
Bristol.
Minutes show that came from the crowd.
With you, Trey.
All right, here, and I'm not going to read each and every one of these, but we get there faster. Oh, I am going to read number 2, though. It's less risk. So the deal that we have with Norfolk Southern, we are having them do all the construction work. So they're going to do all the work. They've got a flat dollar amount that they've got to hit. Anything above that dollar amount, if there's a budget overage, they pay a large share of that. If they get it done cheaper, they share some of the savings as well. And if they get it done cheaper and faster, they share a lot of the savings. So they are under contract to deliver it to us in mid-2027. We're pushing them to get it done earlier in 2027. We want to make sure that the trains are in service for that first semester of folks going down to school. If Norfolk Southern delivers it faster, they actually have some financial incentive. It gives us more service. Again, it's much cheaper. And again, the Manassas line, it gives us a lot more control. The pictures there, I just want to go through. This one is the old Christiansburg station that was in existence till 1979. The Roanoke station, you see the similar awning/canopy, and then the top left, you see that's the artist rendering of what it's going to look like in the New River Valley. Everybody wants to know about the money, so there are three pieces. Number one, $65 million to do the platform, the pocket track, parking lot, about 150 spaces, and then also a layover facility at Radford. So the trains will come into the New River Valley Station, they will let folks off, and then they will continue the 9 miles on to Radford, where they'll be serviced, cleaned, spend the night for the overnight, and then they'll come back the other way. $65 million covers that. That, again, is a hard cap that Norfolk Southern has to stay under. $42 million is for the station and the layover facility, about $10 million is parking, and it comes at 65. 48 of it came from our 2021 Commonwealth Appropriations Act, and then 17.5 is coming from the Commonwealth Rail funding. Second piece is the improvements to the Roanoke Yard. Going further west from Roanoke, we still have to do that, $36.5 million. That was part of the original deal that just carried forward. And then the Western Rail improvements, $100 million is from this group. It's a one-time slug that came a couple years ago that we're spending down thanks to VDOT and their folks. That gives us additional passenger rail improvements from Roanoke further west. We've got $13 million from the Commonwealth High Priority Projects and then another $18 million from VPRA money. So this is an overhead look of the location, the New River Valley Station, right in the middle, and I'll point to it. That's the old depot building. That is formerly the maintenance away, well, formerly the passenger station, then the maintenance away location, soon to be the passenger location again. Maintenance away location, Norfolk Southern is moving. It's going to be right in this area here. We're going to have ownership of everything starting in the parking lot. For those of you that came in with the CTB tour, I know there are a couple, came in right this way and came out to do the tour. So you get a sense for where you were. Just a note, where the Cambria building is now, the historic building, if you go to the west, there's the original station that was there. It's a bookstore, it's an antique store right now. That's still there. But this is what it looks like from the top. Train will go further west to Radford to the layover facility. Next step, so this says prior to the end of '24, Norfolk Southern is going to complete the final design. They are really, really, really close. In fact, if they were here, they would say it's done. It's not all signed off to everybody, but it's really close. That'll be done in the next week or so. We're working with the historical resources folks and with DEQ to get approval to move forward. Construction's already begun on the new maintenance away location at Cambria. We are going to, on Monday, I believe, Norfolk Southern gets the final bids from the folks doing the construction, and construction will start in February, maybe early March. We got an earmark a couple years ago, $2 million for this initiative. That's an earmark that we are going to transfer to the New River Valley Passenger Rail Station Authority so they can do their work on the building. We're going to deliver the parking lot, the platform, the canopies. They're going to deliver the building, and they've been fantastic to work with. I can't say that enough. They've been great. The community's been great. It's been a challenging project. We can now see the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. It's a safe tunnel, but we're in good shape. And then we're going to start passenger rail 2027. Any questions? I know that was quick.
DJ, do you have any, and I didn't ask you for this prior, any ridership data and percentage of increase on an annual basis?
Yeah, so I'd have to do the math. We expect that once this is done, it'll be an extra 80,000 riders a year that will be added because of this extension. Right now, there are about 30,000 riders a month, so I'm not going to do the math on the fly because Britt will correct me.
Well, it's been a steady increase annually. I just spoke at the VACO conference, and I had that data, but I know that it was a steady increase over the last several years in ridership out of Roanoke.
That's correct, and surrounding areas.
Train there, and I think it has exceeded expectation from the onset.
That is an understatement, sir. Virginia is truly the role model for if you build it, they will come. I mean, when we add more trains, especially the second Roanoke train, and then we added a third Norfolk train, folks are coming.
So years ago, when we first began this process with I-81 improvement, we had a group named Rail Solutions who came and spoke to us about rail and the benefit of rail and the problems with Interstate 81, and I somewhat disregarded it, but I've lived to regret that because it is a very effective way to move people, and without that, gosh knows, I don't know if we could move on Interstate 81 today, so it's been very effective. Any questions of DJ in regard to what's been discussed with this?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
DJ, what is the expected price for ticket from like Christiansburg up to, say, DC?
It's tough to say right now because it will be different depending on the time of year. I mean, if it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, it's going to be more expensive. I can tell you right now on a pretty similar trip, if you go Richmond to DC, for example, you can go as low as $13, and then if it's really busy, it could be as high as $30, $35. But it'll be competitive. In fact, depending on where we are in the economy, quite frequently it's cheaper than the gas. Yeah, and look, that's a great point, and I'm sorry, if I may.
Yeah, sure, DJ.
We work very hard to balance revenue and ridership. I mean, we're not in this to make money. We're on this to get folks off of I-81, to give folks a better passenger experience, and to also really be an integral part of the transportation network. So, yes, we're not going to let folks ride for free because it's expensive to run the trains, but we've got to find that sweet spot, working with Amtrak to really get that nirvana of price and ridership.
DJ, I'm going to leverage you to get into black because I want your dollars for Interstate 81.
Yes, sir. Well, so the Roanoke train was one of the few trains across the nation that actually ran above 100% for a while before COVID. We're not back yet, but
Sure.
yeah, we're going to do our best, sir.
Yes,
But
sir.
It's not a promise.
So, DJ, a very quick and brief update on the Long Bridge, which is an important benefit to rail in Virginia. So has that project been awarded, DJ?
So you're asking me a trick question. Thank you very much, sir. Long Bridge was split into two separate projects. The Long Bridge North is from the northern end of the Potomac River through to L'Enfant Plaza, and then it continues up to Washington Union Station. That piece of the project has been awarded, and we actually broke ground on it a month and a half ago. So that is well underway. Knock on wood, we are continuing to be scheduled to complete that in 2030. That was the original commitment back in 2021, and we're holding to that commitment, and I'll regret saying this, I have high confidence that we'll hit that. The South package, we started a little later because it's the easier of the two packages. The North package goes over 395, it goes over a bunch of highways, goes over Washington Channel. The South package just goes over the river. And where on the North package, you're actually putting a new bridge right next to, you're almost co-joining it with the existing traffic. Over the river, it's a brand new structure. You don't have to shut down the railroad to put that in place. So that one is on schedule. It's designed to be later in the schedule. So it's behind the North package, but it's not behind schedule. That we're in final negotiations to award that to a contractor, likely at our January board meeting.
And this is a $3 billion plus project.
The Long Bridge is $2.3 billion, yes. And then if you add the bypass, which is further south, that's the one that splits the freight and the passenger. That's another $400 million. So yeah, we're delivering well over $4 billion worth of infrastructure when it's all said and done.
Thank you, DJ. And for the senator from the West's benefit, if you, Travis, if you look at Senator, if you look at a map of the rail from Christiansburg to Bristol, it's relatively straight, unlike a lot of rail throughout Southwest in this part of the state. It's freight rail, and it's windy and crooked. I have a rail map at my office in Richmond. You're welcome to come see it. It pretty much follows Interstate 81. We got to get an association with Tennessee to get into Tennessee, to get to Knoxville, Nashville, but we're continuing to work and to progress along that path. So, yes, sir. Thank you, DJ, as always. You do
Thank you. Appreciate it.
great work for the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Okay. This brings us to our public comment section of our agenda. Is there anyone in the public at this time that would like to address the committee in regard to anything that's been said or heard today and pertaining to any mode of transportation, except airplanes? We haven't talked about airplanes, so we won't go there. So, anyone in the audience? Going once. Going twice. No comment. Okay. Open it up for public discussion and comment among the committee. Does anyone on the committee have anything that they'd like to discuss or talk about that we've heard today? Yes, Senator Hackworth.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I continue every year, and probably members of the General Assembly that has towns, counties that, 81 goes through or touches to get some concerns and complaints about the resources that is taken from their county, their towns, for traffic incidents. A lot of times it is, traffic control, cleanup, things like that. And if it's not hazardous, a lot of times they can't charge for that. And so I think last year we was asked, and we put in a budget amendment to help with some of the reimbursements for that. So I don't know, it seems like it's a moving target, but I just want to throw that out there if anybody has any ideas on reimbursement those, because it has been an issue, especially our smaller localities. Pulaski is one that hits it hard. They said they had a couple of incidents, and if there had been a incident in the county, they would have had to choose which way to go, and possibly could have been a fatality if there had been a fire or something, because all of their departments was tied up on 81. So, just throwing that out there for discussion. If there's any ideas that may could help with that, or if anybody else is
Travis, I fully understand that. And, years ago, I served on the Board of Supervisors, and we implemented fee-for-service for ambulance services. I don't think that same service is available to fire and rescue, fire in particular, who handles incident management and is on the scene for extended periods of time. So I have those same concerns expressed to me. I don't have the answers. I'll be happy to work with you to try to find a path forward. It could be extremely complicated, and it would then become not just an Interstate 81 issue, it'd be a statewide issue for anybody and everyone. So, certainly we can all entertain as legislators and see where we can take it. So, any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Right.
I would just pile on that we've had incidents like that, and a situation on I-81 where ambulance was hit by a tractor trailer when it was in service. And when we had the insurance claim, it didn't cover the cost of the replacement. So understand exactly what you're talking about, and appreciate anything you can do to assist with that. The slides for today, I don't know if Ronique or somebody can help with emailing those out to the committee members so we can have those handy to share around.
Yeah, we get the slide deck to everyone on the committee.
Terrific.
Yes, sir.
And last, I'd be remiss, it is the holiday season, and we are in Lexington. So I wanted to invite everyone to stay after the meeting and go shopping downtown. Make yourselves comfortable in our community, have a drink, a meal, and take...
Tell them it's on you.
Exactly.
Thanks, Frank, as always. I always appreciate your hospitality. Having said that, any other comments or discussion? So, Phil?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want to echo, being a former railroader, I'm really excited to see the rail service be so successful. And Senator, when you one day take the train, you'll be able to see the traffic on the highways that are sitting still in rush hour traffic, or either morning or evening as you go into Washington. And by the way, if you go to Alexandria and walk across the street from the train station, you got 3 or 4 hotels that have good rates on the weekend. Their parking is $38 a night. So off the bat for 2 nights, you save $76, which just about covers 1 ticket. And then the other ticket for your wife, if you will, you would have spent that money or more on gasoline. So what I'm saying is your vacation isn't as costly as you might think at the end of the day, and you don't have to drive. They've got a nice club car on there, and they got good coffee. But they switched from Dunkin' Donuts coffee to, I think, Starbucks, a little bit stronger, but I highly recommend it.
Thank you. Well, I would say I have to give DJ credit. The creation of the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority has been a real plus for implementing and moving rail service throughout Virginia. And DJ and his staff have done a phenomenal job. I most recently had him in Clifton Forge looking at the Cardinal Line going west there. He brought forth some ideas and some suggestions that we'll move forward with at a later time. But, you know, DJ and his staff are always a breath of fresh air and will listen and try to help any way they can. And I think this decision to change courses in Christiansburg, to get on the main line that allows us to move further west, as Senator Pillion, Senator Hackworth, and I have wished to do, will only benefit the Commonwealth going forward in great ways. So DJ, out to you and your staff, please accept our appreciation. At this time, I'd like to thank everyone for your time, your service. Senator Hackworth coming so far today. Travis, I must say, covers his responsibilities very well, and it's a commitment from the people who live as far west as they do to do what they do to service and provide for the business of the Commonwealth. So I thank you, Travis. I thank every one of you for being here today. This committee is extremely important. We act as a recommendation to the CTB, but the work we do in preparation and working with the administration to prepare to advance projects keeps us on course. I'll reiterate the fact that we've got to find revenues. You saw today what happens in 2034, 2035. We lose momentum. I mean, we've got a continuing revenue stream over and above what satisfies our debt service, but we've got to grow more dollars, and it's only getting more expensive, unfortunately. We were gaining quite a bit of revenue in excessive debt service, but with inflation today, as Commissioner said, it's beginning to eat away our abilities to do more. And we certainly need to do more. We don't need to do less. So I will say that. I want to wish everyone in the room and everyone on the committee a happy holiday season. It's always a pleasure to be with you. It's always a pleasure to hear from our staff and our agencies and our departments on what they're doing and the work as they progress things along. But I wish everybody a safe and happy holiday. I'm going to now move to agenda item number 8, which is it's the time of the year for this committee to reform and reorganize. I live in the Salem district. I've chaired this committee for quite some time. I have a lot of other responsibilities also. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor up for nominations. And having done that, I would like to nominate my good friend sitting to my right, Senator Openchain, to chair the I-81 committee for the next 2 years.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor of Senator Openchain being chair signify by saying aye. 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 Congratulations, sir.
You moved past other nominations way too
There
quickly.
were no other nominations.
Way too quickly.
So Senator Openchain.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me just say it's good to be back on this committee. I appreciate the work that's been done over the past 4 years since I've been off. And Terry, Delegate Austin's done a great job in leading this group and in marshaling resources in the General Assembly as well to further our mission. So with that, I think the next order of business is to nominate a vice chair of the committee. Is there a nomination for that?
Mr. Chairman, I would
Mr.
like
Smoot.
to nominate Delegate Austin, who indeed has provided great leadership and would provide, I think, both a lot of history and continuity moving forward.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Here in a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of Delegate Austin for vice chair of the committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations and thank you very much for your leadership. Thank you, sir. So with that, unless there's anything further to be done, the meeting, I believe, is adjourned.